Hello and welcome to another episode of SportsZone. This is Jersey Day at SportsZone. We're kicking it off with the important stuff like we usually do. Studio 90, I'm joined by Aaron as usual, and a lot to get in. This past week was a fairly hectic one in the world of soccer. The Champions League quarterfinal ties were decided, so we now have our 4 semifinalists. And I think we'll just sort of step in and review some of those ties that happened. Probably the most marquee tie was Roma-Barcelona, where Barcelona took a 4-1 lead from home and then threw it away, Roma winning 3-0 at home to put themselves into the semifinals for the first time, I think, in their club's history. Aaron, so is this a bigger deal that Roma was able to overturn this deficit or that Barca choked it away?
I think the fact that Roma were able to overturn that deficit after that first leg when it was 4-1, I think everybody counted them out. Everybody said there was no possible way that they could get through. But that away goal at Barcelona turned out to be very, very important. It's very important that they did get that goal to win 3-0. And I think they just came out in this game with just a completely different strategy, completely new mindset, and it worked. And I think it also showed how susceptible Barcelona can be defensively sometimes, I mean, Barcelona obviously so great going forward, but defensively they were completely in shambles versus Roma, and especially on that last corner kick, just letting Manolas open to score that goal. So I think it definitely showed how Roma, they changed strategically. They were able to overcome that, but I think it also showed how susceptible Barcelona could be at the back sometimes. And for a team that hadn't really lost a game in La Liga, it's very disappointing that they ended up exiting from the tournament.
It certainly is, and Roma now putting themselves in the semifinals. People are sort of talking about them like an underdog, but this is a team that's in third place in the Italian league. They've got quality players. Kostas Manolas is one of the highest demanded center backs in the world. Edin Dzeko got it done formerly with Manchester City. He's one of the better strikers in the world. They've got quality players. So it's not a scrubbed or like a minnow team, but it's certainly a team that hasn't had a lot of success in Europe, and against a team like Barcelona. So certainly that is interesting. The other big team in Spain, Real Madrid, almost pulled a Barcelona, if you will. They had a 3-0 aggregate lead against Juventus going back home and almost coughed it away, but a late controversial penalty from Cristiano Ronaldo was enough for them to advance 4-3 on aggregate. Aaron, sort of, what is your reaction to that game, especially Real Madrid, the struggles of the season, them being able to sort of seep through on the end? Do you think it was a just result?
Well, you mentioned, Real Madrid have struggled this season, and the thing that they've been focusing on is the Champions League, so very important that they did end up going through. But it was very surprising to see them going, 3-0 at Juventus and then coming back home to concede 3 goals. Juventus had a great game. Mare Mandzukic had an unbelievable game for Juventus, but that penalty call late, for me, it's not a penalty. I think that Lucas Vazquez is already going down, and there is contact there, but I don't think it was enough for a penalty kick. So for me, it was disappointing to see that because I wanted to see extra time and let the players decide the game. So it was disappointing that the ref ended up calling that penalty. But I mean, Real Madrid going forward in this tournament, they've got to be the favorite just because of the experience, winning the last 2 Champions League, and the talent they have. I definitely think Real Madrid, even though I don't think that was a penalty kick and maybe they shouldn't have ended up going through, I think they're still the favorites going forward.
It's certainly a very questionable call that ultimately led to Juventus' goalkeeper Gianluigi Buffon getting a red card, Wojciech Szczesny having to come off the bench cold to save a penalty, which is never easy. A lot of things, Juventus and Buffon, usually a very diplomatic character, was very critical of the official there. So a lot of controversy surrounding that tie, and I think you speak for all soccer fans that extra time was what that tie deserved, and it was unfortunate to see that robbed by a controversial decision. Another favorite, Manchester City, really laid an egg over 2 ties against Liverpool. They were beaten 5-1. Liverpool, that was their second and third time beating Manchester City this season. Aaron, do you think it was just a case of Liverpool is being a team that has Manchester City's number?
I definitely think Liverpool have sort of found a formula to beat Manchester City, and you got to give Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool's manager, a lot of credit in that. A lot of teams versus Manchester City, they're a very possession-based team, so they try to sit back and sort of absorb the pressure. But Liverpool really took it to them. They high-pressed them. They high-pressed their defense, and Manchester City weren't able to get the possession they usually want. And when you have a guy like Mohamed Salah, who's just able to score goals for fun, and that front three of Salah, Firmino, and Mane, I definitely think that Liverpool sort of found a formula to beat Manchester City, and they've had their number all season, and this definitely showed in that tie. So, even though Manchester City were the favorites, it's not surprising to me that Liverpool were able to beat them just because they had beaten them previously in the Premier League, and I think the style that they play and the strategy that Jurgen Klopp put out was definitely able to minimize, what Manchester City do best.
And sort of sticking with Manchester City before we talk about the quarterfinal tie, Manchester City, this was a team that was boasting that they could potentially win 4 trophies this year. Now with that Champions League exit, they have the Premier League title locked up. They've won the Carabao Cup, but they have been eliminated in the FA Cup, and they don't even reach the semifinals in the Champions League. What do you think the perception of this season should be for Manchester City?
Well, I still think it's successful just because they did end up winning the Premier League title. But, when Manchester City brought in Pep Guardiola, the goal was to win the Champions League. That's always been their goal from the moment that they started spending all this money, buying a lot of players. They wanted to win the Champions League. So I definitely think it's disappointing that they weren't able to reach the semifinals. And going forward, if they want to reach the levels that they've set out, they need to go farther into Champions League. They need to be able to get to the semifinals and the finals. So even though they did end up winning the Premier League title, still a successful season, but definitely disappointing that Pep Guardiola wasn't able to bring them to the semifinals.
It's certainly unfortunate, especially when you see some of the teams that are left. Maybe they would have really fancied themselves to win. The final tie, maybe not worth discussing, but Bayern Munich was able to sort of squeak by Sevilla to get themselves into the semifinals again, and the ties are Bayern Munich will play Real Madrid in the semifinals and Roma will play Liverpool. And Aaron, just looking at sort of those ties, which one do you think is the more intriguing? And I know you mentioned Real Madrid is the favorite in the tournament, but do you think there's another team who potentially could be a team that could win the Champions League?
Well, obviously, out of the 4 teams, the 2 best teams are Real Madrid and Bayern Munich, and they do get drawn together. So definitely whoever comes out of that tie is going to be the favorite for the final. But look, Liverpool and Roma are still very good teams. They're teams that can possibly win the Champions League. So both these ties are going to be very intriguing, and I'm very interested to see who's going to come out in front.
Certainly. The Liverpool-Roma tie is very intriguing, especially Mohamed Salah playing against his old team. Now, over the weekend, scored his 40th goal of the season, so the subplots are plenty there, and it should be interesting to see how those sort of ties play out. We'll keep an eye over those on the last couple episodes of SportsZone, but that's all the time we have for this edition of Studio 90. Stick around for more SportsZone after this.
Welcome back to SportsZone with your favorite segment, getting back to third base after a few weeks on the DL. We're back at full strength with Kristen and Aviva. Last week we talked about the LA Angels off to their hot start, 12-2 right now. Shohei Ohtani going off. Aviva, tell me more about that.
So he's huge for the LA Angels. He is a really good pitcher. He's a really good batter. Last week he had 3 home runs. I think he had another home run this week. And he won last Sunday with his start. He's starting again this weekend, and he's doing really well. The Angels are doing really well. People knew that they were going to do well in the beginning of the season, and they're by far exceeding their expectations.
They're off to a hot start, leading the AL West. Big surprise right there. And another team that's been off to a good start, the Mets. Tell me about that, Kristen.
So the Mets definitely got off to a hot start. They ran into a little bit of a roadblock. Yesterday, Matt Harvey made the start against the Brewers, and he only went 5 innings, which, again, is something that we're going to have to see going forward, whether he's going to be able to keep building on these shorter starts that he's been having. He wasn't great. As I said, he only went 5 innings, and the lineup for the first time since the season really began wasn't really there to support him. They didn't have it last night, and really it was a surprise to pretty much everyone because they have been really stringing together hits really well since the start of the season. So you can't win every game. The lineup didn't have it yesterday. Matt Harvey didn't really have it yesterday. But going forward, I think if Matt Harvey continues to just build off of what he's been able to do so far and hopefully be able to, in the future, go a little bit deeper into games, then I think that he's going to be fine.
Mets definitely off to a hot start. But someone is not. New York Yankees right field slugger Giancarlo Stanton. What's wrong with him?
A lot of people have been saying that Giancarlo just hasn't been able to adjust. It's still very early in the season, obviously, but he has really struggled like no other transitioning to New York. He went 0 for 5, striking out 5 times twice so far this season, which is unheard of. And other than that, the Yankees really have been struggling both offensively and defensively. Their base running has pretty much been atrocious. They've gotten caught in like 3 rundowns so far this season. And then also defensively, they're one of the teams with the most errors in the league. So really nothing has been going right for the Yankees. They dropped 2 out of 3 to Boston, which was a really big deal. And the Orioles beat them 3 out of 4 games, which was another surprising thing that happened. So really nothing has been going right for the Yankees. And if you struggle both offensively and defensively, you're not going to win.
Very good point. Yankees slugging behind the Toronto Blue Jays and Boston Red Sox. Speaking of the Red Sox and the Yankees, they really got into it earlier this week, and between a brawl between Joe Kelly and Tyler Austin. Kelly hitting Austin and leading to a fight between the two benches. Very entertaining baseball. I enjoy watching bench clearing brawls. It's always fun to get the fans riled up for that. Austin and Joe Kelly each were suspended. Kelly for 6 games, Austin for 5 games. And on the other side of the coast, we have the Colorado Rockies and Padres getting into a scuffle with Nolan Arenado's great hair flowing in the wind after Luis Perdomo throws a fastball behind him. Nolan Arenado has been suspended for 5 games and Perdomo's for 5 games. And there are other suspensions. The only one that's really worth noting is Geraldo Parra, right fielder for the Rockies, getting a 4-game suspension. I mean, that's the big news. But before we go, what's so far this season? What's been your favorite moment?
So I can go first. My favorite moment so far from this season is not going to come as a surprise to anybody. It was definitely when the Mets swept the Washington Nationals. I don't think anybody was expecting that to happen. I certainly wasn't expecting it at all. Their bats really pulled through when they needed to. They got a lot of rallies late in the game when they needed to. And the Mets pitching in that series was by far the best that I've ever seen them consecutively pitch. Matt Harvey was the only one that kind of struggled in that last game, but he had the bats really there to support him that game. And the Mets bullpen also really shined that series, which was awesome to see. Seth Lugo and Jacob Rain both pitched really well behind Matt Harvey to get them the win in order to secure the sweep in that series. So I thought that was a great way to just set the tone going forward. And the Mets are playing the Nationals again this upcoming week at Citi Field. So it's going to be exciting to see if they can carry the energy that they played with from DC over to New York.
And Aviva.
So going off of what Kristen said, my favorite was Sunday night's game when the Mets had the sweep over the Washington Nationals. Me and Kristen, we went to the game. It ended at like 12:30 in the morning. It was 30 degrees. It was really cold, but it was great to see how the Mets really came back. They were winning pretty much the entire time, and then the Nationals had bases loaded, bottom of the ninth. Bryce Harper on third base, and Seth Lugo struck out 2 players, and that's how they got into extra innings, and then they won in the top of the 12th, and then they secured it in the bottom of the 12th. So it was a great win to see, and what Kristen said, like, it's really good momentum for the first week of baseball, so hopefully the Mets will keep it up.
It's good to hear for the Mets as they continue to go forward. For me, for a team that isn't off to a great start at the Orioles, definitely taking 3 out of 4 from the Yankees is definitely a highlight with El Toro Pedro Alvarez, who's not necessarily known for a great bat, hitting a grand slam in extra innings, or maybe us striking out Aaron Judge and Carlos Stanton with the bases loaded to end the game. But not an Orioles moment would be Joe Mauer's 2000th hit. Joe Mauer is well loved in Minnesota. I like him. He was a great catcher. I still hope he gets to the Hall of Fame, but it was really great to see another legend reach that milestone of a 2000th hit. That's all we have today from Getting to Third Base. Stay tuned for more SportsZone.
And welcome back to SportsZone. This is our NBA segment, throwing it up. I'm joined again by Justin. So regular season, NBA season is now in the books. The playoffs are starting. Justin, we'll start by talking about the Eastern Conference. 2 games yesterday, the Raptors beating the Wizards and the 76ers beating the Heat. But out of all the Eastern Conference matchups, which one do you think is most intriguing?
I think personally the Wizards-Raptors series, mostly because like the Wizards can be Jekyll and Hyde. They have been all season. They could beat Toronto in 7 games. They could also be swept. As we saw yesterday, they played tough with them for 3 quarters, and then there was a bad Mike Scott flagrant foul, and then it kind of just unraveled from there. If they play the way they did in the first 3 quarters, I could see them winning game 2, possibly getting like 2 games and taking the series long. Also, Indiana's going to be an interesting matchup for Cleveland just because they play physical defense, and Cleveland may or may not shorten that rotation. We'll see how Ty Lue coaches that. But yeah, the probably most intriguing matchup is definitely Wizards-Toronto.
Yeah, definitely. The Wizards an interesting team. Depends on the day, how they play. But like you said, that Cleveland matchup is also very interesting. Everybody expecting LeBron to come out of the Eastern Conference, but that remains to be seen. And we'll also talk about the Western Conference matches starting yesterday. Justin, which first-round matchup are you most looking forward to in the Western Conference?
Part of me wants to say Portland, New Orleans, just because if you saw last night, Anthony Davis could just be like the game changer. They won game one. He just destroyed every pick and roll that Portland did. But for me, it's Oklahoma City versus Utah. You got a really good defensive-minded Utah team going up against Paul George, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, Steven Adams. They really need to win the series to have any chance of keeping Paul George. They need to advance far. But Donovan Mitchell, Ricky Rubio, Joe Ingles have played really, really well, and I could see this series going 7. With possibly Utah winning it. I think it's really close. But this will be a big test for Russell Westbrook, Paul George, see how they mesh, because there's a good chance they're going to face Houston in round 2, and they should try to make it as quick of a series as possible. I just don't think they can.
Yeah, definitely Oklahoma City, an interesting team. They've been up and down all season, but like you said, this is big for them because Paul George will be a free agent this summer, and to get him to stay, they really need to win at least this first-round matchup. But looking at the playoffs overall, a lot of people are expecting a rematch in the final between Golden State and Cleveland, but both teams are not the first seed. In the Western Conference, Houston being the first seed, and the Eastern Conference, Toronto being the first seed. So, Justin, do you expect a rematch of the finals, or is there going to be a new team in the NBA Finals this year?
I expect a rematch of the finals. I think we kind of saw it yesterday. Golden State has really kind of just went along with the ride for the regular season, and they just clamped down on, San Antonio yesterday. Granted, Kawhi wasn't there. Nobody actually knows where Kawhi is at all. He didn't even travel with the team. They were up by 1.30 on them. Probably the second round will be a truer test of what they are. They also don't have Steph, but clearly defensively they've decided to ratchet it up. So with that, I definitely can see them coming out of the West, although I think Houston's going to make it tough. And then Cleveland, until somebody knocks off LeBron James, I just have to trust he's the best player in that conference by far. It's not even close. I think he has enough help to get him out of the Eastern Conference. I don't think he wins the finals, whether he plays Houston or Golden State, but he's good enough to get you there.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I definitely think that Golden State-Cleveland will be the matchup again, but I still think it's going to be more difficult. Both teams, especially Golden State with Steph Curry out, and Toronto definitely will give Cleveland a good matchup, but I still think that Cleveland will come out of these and Golden State will come out of the West. But another interesting NBA storyline that's sort of been in the news this week is Rookie of the Year. Two main contenders are Ben Simmons and Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell coming out with that, rookie sweatshirt, sort of taking a shot at Ben Simmons, saying he's really not a rookie. So, Justin, what do you make of this, and who do you think should be the Rookie of the Year?
I mean, I enjoy it personally. I think it's really fun seeing two young guys going, because the NBA's going to need it in a couple of years. Because LeBron's not going to play. He might play another 5 more seasons, but he's not playing longer than that. And you need that, next superstar, next intrigue, because. LeBron dominates most of those headlines, so you need that passing of the torch. I think it's great seeing the feud because they're both playing outstanding. It's not like a couple years ago where Malcolm Brogdon was kind of the de facto rookie just because he was playing the most minutes and averaging 10 points. These are like legit, bona fide potential all-star type players leading their teams to the playoffs. I think the case is, would he define rookie of the year? Do you go by most important player or like best player? Because most important is Donovan Mitchell because they need his scoring. Probably best is probably Ben Simmons just because of that all around. He's a 6'10" point guard. Probably the closest thing we're going to get to Magic Johnson. Me personally, I think it's Donovan Mitchell. Not so much of the rookie thing, just because he's more important to this team. They wouldn't make the playoffs without him. But I definitely see Ben Simmons being like an MVP candidate within like the next 2 or 3 years, maybe sooner. So.
I would also tend to agree Donovan Mitchell being the rookie year, especially being in that Western Conference, taking the Utah Jazz to the playoffs. But obviously Ben Simmons, he's destined for greatness, and the guy's just unbelievable. But both players are definitely going to be big name players in this league for years to come. And we'll end the segment by talking about our favorite team, the New York Knicks. Disappointing season, Porzingis getting injured halfway through, but not being able to make the playoffs, and they just fired their head coach, Jeff Hornacek. So, Justin, what do you think the Knicks should do going forward with regards to both, hiring a head coach and personnel moves?
Oh, I like the direction they want to go in. When you talk Scott Perry and Steve Mills kind of had a press conference the other day where they talked about they want to go back to that old 90s, defense first mentality. I know everybody wants to go with Mark Jackson. I definitely see the appeal there. I definitely see him being the front runner in terms of the fans just because he's a New Yorker, former Knick. I just don't think he has – his defensive standpoint is fine. His offensive standpoint was the reason that he held back the Golden State Warriors, aside from relationship with management standpoint. I know Jeff Van Gundy's name's been around. I would definitely embrace him. Steve Clifford just got released by the Hornets. He was a pop candidate, so can't go wrong with a pop coaching tree. My dark horse favorite is Jerry Stackhouse. He coaches the NBA D-League affiliate for the Toronto Raptors. He's responsible for the Raptors, number one bench this season, developing those players. If your goal is to develop players, you have great defense. Stackhouse is probably the right fit in my mind to develop Ntilikina, Porzingis, whatever top 10 pick they get this year, because next year's going to be a long season with Porzingis being out. So, he's had a good track record. He's a favorite in a lot of clubhouses. I would bring him in. I would try to stay away from the flashy name because they've been doing that for forever recently. So go with somebody who can just get the job done, going to work every day, and then, it's not like a big name.
Yeah, definitely Jerry Stackhouse, underrated name for that head coaching position, but everybody sort of expects Mark Jackson to get that job, but we'll see how the Knicks go moving forward. But I think that's all we have right now for Throwing It Up, and more SportsZone after this. And welcome back to SportsZone. This is our favorite segment, Thumbles, where we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly in the world of sports and the world at large. So thumbs up, it's Jersey Day here at SportsZone. Everybody's in their jerseys, pretty cool. But also thumbs down because I just realized there are only 2 more tapings of the show after this, which is insane, which is crazy. The year's gone by very fast. Also thumbs down to the weather because it was 80 degrees yesterday, and now it's 50 degrees. I walked out of my dorm room in shorts and a t-shirt, and now I'm freezing cold. So thumbs down to the weather. But let's talk about some sports here. Thumbs up to Champions League this week, and just pretty much all season has been fantastic. Some great games. Roma 3-0 against Barcelona was definitely my favorite. What a game. Nobody expected Roma to go through, so thumbs up to them for being able to do that. And just some great Champions League this week. I hate to say it, but thumbs up to Liverpool because they've really turned it on the second half of the season, both in the league and in the Champions League. It's tough to say it's a Man United fan, but they've done so well this season. Thumbs down to Ronaldo because after he scored his penalty kick, he took off his shirt and just celebrated, and I just hate that. What else? Thumbs down to the Red Bulls. We were in the CONCACAF Champions League semifinals, and we lost to Chivas, proving once again that we cannot win in any tournament setting. We still have not won a cup in over 20 years, so it's really bad. I guess I'll end it by saying thumbs middle to the Knicks firing Jeff Hornacek. I didn't think he was an awful coach. Obviously, he wasn't dealt a good hand with the players he had, but sometimes, sort of questions the moves that he did, and hopefully we can get in a new coach who can sort of work some magic and maybe get us into the playoffs, hopefully. But we'll see how that goes. And I think that's all I got. I'll throw it over to Aviva.
Okay. I'm going to give a thumbs up to the New York Mets. They're 11-2 right now. They're doing really well. They had a 9-game winning streak. They swept the Washington Nationals last weekend, and they won the last 5 of the last 6 games, which is really good. The rubber game against the Milwaukee Brewers is today, so hopefully they win. Thumbs down. I didn't do this last week, but thumbs down to Eric Hosmer. A week ago or 2 weeks ago, he missed a very easy pop fly that lost the San Diego Padres. The Houston Astros won on the walk-off. It was really bad. So thumbs down to Eric Hosmer. I'm gonna give a thumbs up to the weather. For the past 3 days, it's been really warm. So a lot of people have been on the quad. So that's really good to see. Yeah, but then thumbs middle, because now it's really cold and it's gonna be in the 50s the rest of the week. So that's not good. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Here's Kristen.
All right, I'm gonna give a thumbs up to baseball. Today is Jackie Robinson Day around the major leagues, so all the teams are gonna be wearing the number 42, which I think is really cool. Obviously, Jackie Robinson broke a lot of barriers and opened the door for everyone to be able to play the game, which is awesome. So thumbs up to that. I'll give a thumbs up to the Mets, who obviously have been playing really well. They have the best record in baseball, which is awesome. I'll give a thumbs middle to Matt Harvey. He hasn't looked great so far, but I think going forward he will be able to continue to build off of what he's been doing and hopefully be able to get better as we go. And then I'll give a thumbs up to Curtis Granderson. He's been having a great April so far. He's hitting over 300, which is a small sample size, but I think that he is going to have a good year, and so thumbs up to him. He's been playing really well for the Blue Jays. And that's all I have. Here's Justin.
All right. Every time I do this. So, follow like everybody else, thumbs up to our favorite topic, the weather. It's been nice the last couple of days. Got to discover some new people at the quad, which is always nice, seeing faces I've never seen before. People I didn't think went to the school. It's always nice to do that. Thumbs down to, the Madrid-Juventus game. Thought Juventus was coming back. Got upset when they couldn't defend for the last 10 seconds and gave up a penalty. That's probably my 2 cents on soccer for this whole segment. Thumbs up to Major League Baseball, Jackie Robinson Day. Always a good day. Seeing everybody wearing 42. Special day. Need to up that 3.2% African American population in the sport, but they're still doing better than the NFL. Thumbs up to the NBA playoffs are back. A lot of good games yesterday, especially Anthony Davis, Portland. I love seeing playoff Rondo. Playoff Kelly Olynyk is a thing too. He dropped 31 points, I think. Ben Simmons, yeah, well, fun stuff. LeBron's playing today, so that's always fun. And then I guess a thumbs middle to the Knicks for firing Hornacek. Got dealt a bad hand because the roster was pretty bad. But I think they needed a better coach anyway. And then also a thumbs up because Porzingis said he's healing like a lizard, which don't understand what that means, but hopefully that means good things. But yeah, I'm gonna pass it over.
Don't want to take the green screen with me. So thumbs up to the Mets. That's gonna be hard. That's gonna be very nice for Aviva and Kristen to hear me say that. They've been playing like fire, and I'd really love Noah Syndergaard. I think he's a really fun pitcher. Thor, just love seeing starting pitchers pump 100 miles per hour. As well, thumbs up to Jackie Robinson Day. It's a really special day, really symbolic, and I think it's very important to consider what he did and how to move forward, especially in this time frame where unfortunately that's put into question. Hopefully I said that right. Thumbs up to Andre Ingram. I'll share a little story about him. So in sports writing, we Skyped him, and our entire class was asking him questions. The only question I asked him was, so a few years ago, Klay Thompson was talking about how Utah had no life and how that's throwing the Warriors off. So I asked him, I said, Andre, you played several years in Utah. Does it truly have no nightlife? The entire class just looked at me and was like, David, seriously? You're asking about nightlife in Utah? He's a married man. So that's my story about Andre, probably not a good one. But really thumbs up to him for making his debut. It's really, really important to realize that, whatever our dreams are, as long as we keep trying, we'll eventually get those. I would say thumbs down to the Bears for not matching Meredith Cameron or Cameron Meredith's contract. I don't even remember what his name is. It was a really cheap contract. I think he's a really good wide receiver when healthy, and it's kind of a shame to see him go to the Saints. He had so much potential playing with Trubisky. We'll go to Drew Brees, so I'm sure he's not upset. And finally, thumbs down to the Orioles for being awful and losing to the Blue Jays and being no-hit for 8 innings by Aaron Sanchez before losing to Curtis Granderson home run. Thumbs out to that entire game. My brother was there. Big waste of time, I think, on his part. And waste of time on my part for listening on the radio. And yeah, that's all I got for thumbs.
All right. I'll start. I'll go thumbs up because the Pirates are still playing above 500 baseball. Jamison Cowan, I think I butchered his name, but their starting pitcher, he's 2-0. His ERA is below 1. He didn't get a decision in their victory over the Marlins yesterday because they won on a bunt in the 9th inning, but their young pitcher doing really well. Guys like Josh Harrison and especially Gregory Polanco are really playing well and stepping up, and I don't know how long they can continue playing well, but it's nice to see the Pirates playing well, especially when they weren't expected to do this well. We'll go thumbs up. The Pittsburgh Penguins began their quest for a third straight Stanley Cup with a 7-0 victory over Philadelphia Flyers. They gave it back with a 5-1 victory 2 days later, but hopefully the Penguins can make good and advance decently far, and if they could knock off the Capitals again, that would be fun because Capitals fans aren't the best, but I don't think the Penguins are in a good place for their third straight Stanley Cup, but it would be nice to see how far they can go. We'll go thumbs up also to Andre Ingram, AU alum. He had a lot of exposure after his debut. He scored 19 points off the bench against the Rockets. He was literally everywhere, and I think that was a lot of good exposure for him, especially his story, and as well for the school, showing what hard work and dedication 11 years in the G League can produce. So I think that was a great story for everybody to see. I'll go thumbs middle to Arsenal. They lost today to Newcastle, but the Premier League doesn't even matter at this point. It doesn't. They also squeaked through to the semifinals of the Europa League, where they drew Atletico Madrid, who are undoubtedly the best team in the tournament, best team defensively, and they've got Diego Costa and Antoine Griezmann. They are going to mercilessly expose Arsenal's leaky backline, and it's not going to be fun to watch. RIP Europa League. It was fun while it lasted. And I think that is all that I have. So for everybody who was here today on Jersey Day, Justin, Aaron, David, Aviva, Kristen, thank you for watching SportsZone, and we will see you next time.
How fake news this all is.
How is it fake news?
Well, it's not fake news.
You're fake news.
Oh shit! No.
You don't even think Rene Rivera's good just because he was a Met.
Well, no, he's known for his bat.
What?
He's never had a great bat.
And then I say, wait, how am I switching gears to